hope you're doing well. So I wanted to talk today about Terri Hoffmans and the similarities in the cult that she had and the cult that was Chad Daybell and Julie Rowe. Specifically, Terri Hoffmans reminds me of Julie Rowe, and that's why I wanted to kind of dive into it and tell you guys about it, because I don't know if a lot of people know about it, but the similarities between them should be noted. Okay, so I have wrote it all down so I can give it to you guys, because I couldn't remember. I'm not great at memorizing. Okay, so Terri Hoffmans was a religious cult leader. She was known, basically more so popularity, for the mysterious deaths that surrounded her cult. In the 1950s, she became interested in meditation, metaphysics, and hypnotism. And the writings of Edward Casey. After she began attracting a number of followers in the late, it was probably like the late 1960s, she incorporated her movement as the consciousness development of mind, body, and soul. She was selling lessons and private consultations, similar to Julie Rowe. She claimed that she was the reincarnation of Saint Teresa of Avila. She said that she could communicate with with dead people and spirits, and she could see the past, present, and future. And she could tell if someone was your soulmate, all that, tell you about your history, tell you who you used to be, all that. Terri began to enlighten a close, like within her group, she had an inner circle. Well, she began to enlighten those that were in her inner circle about the spiritual planes and the dark secrets of them. And that there were, according to her, a band of evil spirits named the Dark Lords who disrupted the physical plane with their negative energies. Naturally, no one but Terri could see them, of course, since they only existed on the spiritual realm that Terri could walk freely among. With her help, with Terri's help, the group would be able to fight these and go to war. And with her help and guidance, they would be able to go to war and fight the wicked hellspawn and save humanity. This holy war was to be kept secret. No one outside of the inner circle should know about their practice, for danger falling to them or their families from the Black Lord's negative vibes. The band of women and men were known as the White Brotherhood, and Terri became the divine revelator. Instructions on how to rid the spiritual plane of existence of Black Lords were a simple task. To kill them, one must take them to the pits of hell, where their soul and lower bodies were dissolved. But there were those Black Lords that couldn't be dissolved, and they had to take them to like an electromagnetic cave or something. I don't know. She held weekly meetings where they would draw a protective circle, and each member would bring a cup, a bag of earth, and a shield, and a rod, and a staff. Each of those were representing a different archangel. And, Terri assured her members that they didn't need to bring a full-size sword, so they would use like cocktail sticks and letter openers in representation of those swords. Members would make gestures with the swords and then touch their shoulders where it's thought that the center of power was, and use their thoughts to destroy these Black Lords. Like I don't know. But anyway, And they felt like they were really in battle. At the end of each session, which lasted several hours, Terri would give a body count for how many Dark Lords had been defeated. The group always had to do better. There were emergency battles held, and members would be called together to rush to battle. Each member was told to wear a robe that, when properly made, could give them 15 times more power. The members, however, felt no pain from their battle wounds. Terri absorbed all of that pain for them and told them how she suffered for them in their place. Black Lords were often attaching themselves to members in the organization who had fallen out of favor or family members of the White Brotherhood. She told them to stay alert and curtail any or if all social contact with those outside of the group for the protection from the black forces, because they may be used against them. They may use them to get to you. They were told to keep their swords near them, especially when they went to bed. Protect their animals' car, their place of work, and their home with protection rituals. Her first husband that died, she had two that died, but her first one to die, Glenn Cooley, he wanted out of the coil and marriage with Terri. He was discovered dead of an overdose of Valium and Librium 5 days after their divorce was finalized. She had produced a will naming her the sole beneficiary. Her group saw the tragedy as proof that the Dark Lords were making gains and poisoning the blood. 13 years later, a high-ranking follower told police that Hoffman and her were at Cooley. Hoffman told police that Hoffman told her that Cooley was going to the next level. The two visited him the night that he passed away at his cabin, but after he had already ingested the drugs. So they were there when he did it. The next death surrounding Terri Hoffman was Hoffman's secretary, Sandra Cleaver. She went on vacation with her daughter Susan, whom she had been keeping distance from because evil spirits were infecting her energy. Susan drowned while the two were rafting. The daughter of Sandra drowned while they were rafting, and the almost 14-year-old's will was brought to her father, Chuck Cleaver, stating her $125,000 trust fund was left to the cult. But the document was invalid because wills written by minors were not legal in Texas. After that, Sandy Cleaver then took out a $300,000 life insurance policy naming Hoffman the sole beneficiary, and also transferred the deed to her home to Terri and began paying rent to her to live in her own home. Later on, Sandra Cleaver drove her station wagon off of a mountain, killing herself and her housekeeper. 3 months before that, both had updated their wills, naming Terri the sole beneficiary. Sandy's brother contested the will and settled with Hoffman outside of court, but the group got some really bad publicity because of it. 3 of the 4 followers who testified at Hoffman's behalf during that the contested will committed suicide later on. The next thing that happened was Robin Otsalt maybe, whom Hoffman who Hoffman matched with an invisible CIA agent named George. believed her non-physical bodies were working against her and her best friend Tamara Taylor's invisible CEI agent lover, Martin, was threatening her life. Robin told her former husband that she had terminal viral hepatitis. 2 days after that, she visited Hoffman. She killed herself. 2 days after visiting Hoffman, Robin killed herself with a .38 caliber revolver. Her blood test showed no sign of disease. In November of 1987, Mary Livingston was found dead of a drug overdose. $125,000 in cash was missing, and she had changed her life insurance policy 2 weeks prior to her death. The new beneficiary was her former boyfriend, Larry Keyes, who she met through Hoffman. Terry's fourth husband, Don Hoffman, who had fallen out of favor with the cult, was discovered dead from a mixed drug intoxication in September of 1988. On his legal pad, Don cited his terminal inoperable cancer as the reason for the suicide. Autopsy found no trace of cancer. Terry explained to Don's son Rick that the Dark Lords had hidden the evidence of cancer behind an illusion, and she was the sole beneficiary of his estate. 4 days after Don's death, a former cult devotee, Jill Bounds, was beaten to death in her home. The killer had went through her diary and ripped out pages. Bounds had left the cult in 1982, and despite being afraid of Terri Hoffman, she had visited her a few months prior to her death. And then there was a couple that had killed themselves. They shot themselves, and they had left everything to Hoffman as well. And because of that, an investigation was opened, and it lasted for 4 years. But ultimately, the DA didn't feel like mind control basically would be a prosecutable defense. Basically, it would get her any jail time. So they were later on in 1991, because it was about four or 5 years later, they were able to get her on bankruptcy fraud, 10 counts of bankruptcy fraud, because she had filed bankruptcy, during that time, I guess. They were able to get her on 10 counts of bankruptcy fraud, and she had to serve 16 months in prison. This was from Texas, but it sounds a lot like Julie Rowe's claims that she can see the past, present, and future. Her preparing the people, better tomorrow, whatever. It sounds just like that to me. She would put these people, they would meditate, and basically, okay, you're most susceptible when you're in a meditated state. That's how they do hypnotizing or hypnotherapy. She probably did some of that stuff. She offered energy classes like Julie Rowe, exposing the darkness from past lives and stuff like that, and clearing out that energy. Embracing darkness is how you rid it sometimes, but her spiel is the same.